Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast. Every 2 weeks, we watch an anime, we come out on the podcast to discuss it, and then we turn it over to you so you can continue the discussion because we are three idiots. We try to copy the format of a book club, and we will have a spoiler section that will drop later, but right now we're about to start talking about Bocchi The Rock because this was requested by our listeners and friends of the podcast who said, hey, you guys got to watch Bocchi The Rock. It's not really in our wheelhouse, but we watched it anyway. And to discuss it, I need the help of my co-host. First off, we have the Tom Hanks to my That Thing You Do. It's Jeremy. So, Jeremy, give us an anime pick that let people know your style as we rate Bocchi The Rock.
The comic artist and his assistant. It's a plural.
Okay, you're one of your favorite comedies we've ever done.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to pick comedy, a slice of life comedy, yeah, that's probably it.
Our next guest, who just looked off camera because he suddenly remembered he had to pick an anime, is the Tom Hanks to my Elvis, Jason. So, Jason, what anime would you pick?
Dragon Maid.
Okay. By the way,
Tom Hanks to your Elvis.
Tom Hanks was in the movie Elvis and in the movie That Thing You Do, both as band managers, one for Elvis and one for The Wonders.
Was he a bad guy, like a mean band manager?
I haven't seen the Elvis one from the trailer and the amount of prosthetics they put on them. I definitely wanted to make Jason. All right, and my name is Troy. And the anime I'm picking is actually one that's near and dear to my heart, and it's going a different route than these guys. It's not comedy. It's Beck Mongolian Chop Squad, which is an older anime that was a drama focused on the indie rock scene about this high schooler who's bored with life, and then he listens to an indie rock band, is like, okay, I'm going to learn guitar, joins a rock band, and just kind of travels through the indie rock scene until they get a hit in America, which is the OP song, and it's great. I still sing those songs from that anime with my wife, and they did a really good job of showcasing the love of music. I can't tell you even the plot details of it, but I remember the emotions they filled me with. And it does, and this is important to me, and it will come into play as we talk about Bocchi The Rock. There's a near the end where he gets up on stage and he sings a Beatles song. And he starts out alone with an acoustic guitar singing to this crowd. And one by one, the band joins him. The drums, the bass, and then the electric guitar. And you get to hear each of them kind of come in and what they do to a song and how they fill in the space. Especially for I have a hard time hearing bass. I am music illiterate, as we're going to be finding out. So to get to hear oh, that's what a bass does. That's why it's in the music. It's very important. Not only is it a huge emotional surge in the storytelling, but like I said, it helps me, someone who loves music but does not have an ear for it. It really breaks it down. So Beck Mongolian Chop Squad is the anime I'm picking for one I really love as we talk about Bocchi The Rock.
That's cool.
All right, let's go to non-spoiler reviews. Jason, you start us off. What'd you think of Bocchi The Rock?
The word that comes to mind is bubblegum. It's got an interesting premise. The characters are nice. The story is light and very slice of life. I definitely would not have watched this by myself if I hadn't been assigned it by by our podcast, but I did not dislike my time with it. So it was decent.
Okay, we got a decent. Yay. All right, Jeremy, what's your review?
Mildly amusing for the most part. I will say that there were 2 or 3 episodes that I genuinely enjoyed quite a bit. But for the most part, it was just too sweet, too cute, Not a lot at stake. It's just general slice of life stuff, you know.
Not enough destruction.
I know. I was fascinated with the idea. How is this how would this translate to a shonen, right? Like you've got your different instances where music is played as a band, and that's kind of like your fights, right?
Music
And
battles, like do Food Wars, but with
yeah,
music. You gotta have
right.
music battles.
So I was
Sure.
trying to put it in that lens, but even then, like it was not really fitting very well. And so not I can't say I hated my time with it, but I definitely would prefer something else.
Yeah, apparently the indie rock scene's kind of like anime podcasts. We're all actually just friendly with each other and happy for each other's success, and there's not a lot of cutthroat or
Yep.
backstabbing. We're all like, "Hey, yeah, awesome, good for you." All right, my thoughts on Bocchi the Rock. I'm really in the same boat as everyone else. I enjoyed the exploration of social anxiety as someone who's extremely shy himself, especially in my younger years. I related to a lot of the feelings the character goes through, even though we go to a lot of extremes. I also enjoy the characters of the story, even though I agree like there's not a lot happening in the story. But just like Beck Mongolian Chop Squad, I did enjoy kind of seeing the indie rock scene. I have a love of music because it's something that's beyond my comprehension. And there's just something cool about guitar, bass, and drums. It's true. They're just cool. So that was fun, and there is some good laughs on there. It's not going to stand out as one of my favorites or anime of the year. It just was a good palate cleanser and funny stuff. All right, think about the intro and the outro, the OP and ED.
I liked the OP. The song was nice. The visuals were. It's not a shonen anime, so we don't have this like in-depth Sakura that's like giving us some sort of impressive motion, but it did present the show well. I think I really liked the end of the OP where you've got like kind of that almost still of Bocchi, and it's very Bocchi throughout the show, like her kind of being off by herself and like just kind of walking off screen. But then it cuts to a guitar almost at the ground, and then it cuts again. And I don't know. It just I like the symbolism there. The ED there was a lot of different ones, so I they were okay. They didn't.
Did you like the chibi?
No, I was about to say it
That
didn't
wasn't
really.
chibi.
There was some chibi in there.
Well,
I
I didn't go ew chibi and turn it off. I was just like, oh, it's a nice song, and I don't particularly like. I'm not a big fan of the visuals, so it is what it is.
So I only watched the intro a couple of times, but am I correct in thinking that the intro was actually one of the main songs that they played as a band? That kept coming up. Is that a nod? Is that a yes?
Are you asking me? Because I was actually going to ask you.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it was.
I thought so. That was my thought in episode 12 when they played the song. I thought that they're just playing the intro, right? I haven't memorized it. I like it, but
Yeah, I think that's what it was. But I skipped the intro a lot of the time just because, I wasn't super enjoying my time with it. So I was like, all right, go on, anime. What's next? But I did like that song. It was a good song, especially when they did play it as a band. Yeah, the outro was just kind of boring to me. It was just so fluffy, so sweet. So yeah, I don't have too much to contribute there.
yeah, I don't disagree. There was one symbolism in the OP that I liked is where they show her playing and everyone's instruments are there, so she's alone on stage. But then they show everyone else playing her instruments on stage, showing that she's part of this band, but still always feels separate anyway.
Yeah,
that was cool shot too. because Jason mentioned the imagery of his shot. So, but yeah, I like the OP, but obviously not enough to recognize it to answer Jeremy's question. And the outro ended the show, and then it was time for the next one.
Did its job.
Did its job.
Good job.
All right. So before we go to spoiler section, our next anime is going to be picked by Jeremy. Blue Lock. We're watching a sports anime, everyone.
From Jeremy.
I'll
The
wait for
sports
you to quit
anime-
gasping.
With terrible sportsmanship. That's what makes me curious.
Right, a soccer anime without any of that team camaraderie.
Yeah.
Like it's
None of
like
that team
opposite
crap.
of haiku. Here to
No,
take-
I got enough heartwarming stuff from this anime to last me through like the next 3 months. Come on, let's get some dark anime.
So yeah, Blue Lock episodes 1 through 12. We'll be watching the first core, and then probably after that the second core, and then so that's our next anime. So now for Bocchi The Rock, we're going to the spoiler section. Again, this is a comedy anime. This has kind of come up whenever we do comedy anime. We're going to laugh at jokes that without context probably aren't very funny. So it is better to have watched it so you can laugh along and be like, yeah, I do remember that joke. I am also laughing. Instead of, I guess that must have been funny for them. So my recommendation, especially on the comedy ones, is to watch along with us. But since a lot of you listeners requested this, I'm thinking that's already taken care of.
Mhm.
All right. This takes place in a world where
Oh, jeez.
Japanese high schoolers enjoy music. No, it's modern
Nothing
day
crazy here.
Japan. And we start with our main character, Hitori, who gets the nickname Bocchi, so I'll probably interchange those two names. But we see her as she's growing up, and she's very socially shy, and she's in middle school, and she talks about like the only texts I ever get are from my family. Like I don't have friends, and she sees on TV a rock star say, "Yeah, I was super shy in school and had no friends, but now I can express myself through music, and I have a guitar, and I'm super famous." So that launches the entire plot. Our main character, Hitori, decides right there to become a rock star and takes up guitar and starts learning it. So, what are your guys' thoughts on Bocchi?
She's an easy protagonist to latch onto. You root for her. She's very sympathetic, and I liked her character growth. But it did become a bit off-putting just how many times her social anxiety just completely brought the story to a halt. And I know that's the point, but I didn't. It became so the samey that a lot of the story beats or some of the jokes they were trying to tell with it, or maybe sometimes it wasn't a joke; it was just her reality, which I get. Just didn't feel. I wasn't getting into the story. So, besides that, though, it was really fun to. They did a really good job showing her overcome and do like working towards her goal was a goal in of itself, not just the goal, but
Yeah,
working
every
on the
day.
goal. Like
Yeah.
waking up and working on the goal of the goal that she wanted. Like for someone that doesn't quite understand that kind of social anxiety gripping you, it was interesting and nice to watch. So not the social anxiety, but her dealing with it.
Thank you for clarifying.
Don't cancel
So, yeah. So I thought she was adorable. She cracked me up. There were so many times when they would use the funniest art style. Like she is both a caricature in introversion. And I mean, that's not to say that there aren't some people that are like that, but I think even among introverted people, this is very much an extreme. Like, this is ridiculously extreme. But the art followed suit as well. Like, there were so many different caricature art styles that were used to depict just how out of her element she was in different scenes. And every one of them was great. Every one of them was filled with so much personality, and it cracked me up. I did think, just like you were saying, Jason, that it was kind of debilitating a little bit, like as the audience watching and seeing that, okay, so we're supposed to be doing this. This is where the story's going. And Bocchi's choking up again. What's going on? Okay, she's knocked out. She's on the floor.
Yeah, because like they'd mentioned a random thing, like
Yeah.
let's say, oh, just the thought of that freaks her out now. Okay,
Yeah.
now we're dealing with this
Yep.
for 5 minutes.
Yep, exactly. And at the same time, like, I kind of thought that was, I don't want to sound,
Here we go.
how do I describe it? I don't want to sound like asinine. That's what I don't want to sound. I don't want to sound asinine, but it's almost like you get to experience a little bit of the discomfort that the character is experiencing as the audience. Like, you're forced to. And I did think that was kind of cool. Even though I would normally turn my nose up at that kind of evaluation. I did like that. But yeah, it was nice to see her set her goals, even though I'm glad that there were other characters that were present that didn't have the same goals, even though they may have had some of the same personality traits. And specifically, I'm talking about Rio. Right. And so, because it served as a nice contrast to Bocchi and how she's setting these goals, because she has something that she's decided she needs, right? She needs this social interaction. And that's where, like you mentioned, Troy, you are an introvert. I'm an introvert too, but I don't really need the social interaction at all. I actually find the tiniest bit of it goes a really, really long way. And so for Bocchi, like, I'm watching her and I'm going, I don't understand why this is so important to you. So it was fascinating to watch that, even from the perspective of another introvert, where it's like, yeah, that's not me. That's a different kind.
There's a couple things I want to mention here, so I'm hoping I don't forget any. But the first I want to touch on is her goal, which is, I just want to be rich and famous. It's not I'm going on this musical journey out of a love for music or stuff like you normally see in a music anime. It is very self-serving goal. And she points it out too. Like, I have a bad goal, but it's my goal. But I did enjoy that it was something original like that. It wasn't just pretty with a bow on it. I love music so much. I just want to be the best guitar player ever. I'm going to get rich. I'm going to get famous. I'm never going to have to go to school again. And everyone's going to wish they had known me. And honestly, for my own social anxiety, the desire to be noticed but not have the skills to try to just do that in a normal, healthy way. Yeah, I relate to that a lot. Hey, welcome to our podcast. I definitely thought about that while I was watching this. Like, I feel a little called out. Okay.
Rich and famous.
I completely agree about just the extremes, but there are some things that they touch on that, the last one we dealt with introversion was Dress Up Darling. Yeah. And this one touches on stuff like not able to turn down requests, which I really appreciated, and the fantasies in the head. That one I relate to as well.
Yeah.
Oh, there was another one. There's something else she does that I was like, yeah, that's a very normal thing. Even though I do think she's very extreme, even from my teenage days where I was at my peak social anxiety. She's definitely hitting extremes. I was like, yeah, okay, maybe most people could handle this. This seems a little far for the joke, but that's fine. All right, so Bocchi 3 years passed for her. Now she is very skilled at guitar, so much so that she has a YouTube account called Guitar Hero where she posts herself, just her guitar playing. And it's starting to get quite popular. It gets a lot of comments, gets a lot of views, and we find out is even known in her community by other musicians who are like, yeah, you got to listen to Guitar Hero, not knowing that Bocchi is that. So she's really good at guitar. Has made no friends. It has not served any of the purpose she wants. She records from her closet. Oh, that was the thing I wanted to mention. The changes, the character growth are very well done and shown visually rather than told. There's no I didn't used to do this and now I do scene like in summertime rendering. We actually see her take actions that we know. Oh yeah, from back in the second episode, she wouldn't have been able to do this.
I need to say something.
Yes.
I never want to hear you complain about me reaching back to other anime that we watched ever again.
Fair enough. That's fair. I got no defense on that one. Especially since it wasn't even like the last one. Well, what was I going to say about Try Good Stampede? Anyway, good character growth and visually shown through storytelling rather than just like having a character blurted out. Yeah. That's all right. So she's really good, but she hasn't been working out for her the way she wanted to. So she decides, I'm gonna take my guitar to school. Then someone will talk to me about it, and nobody does because that's the way the world works. You have to engage.
The worst.
Or make a podcast and hope people press play. All right. However, we do see one girl notice, but it's Kita. She comes up later. She has a scene where she's sitting in the park lonely, and there's like this sad businessman. And she's like,
that was a good joke.
He's also sad and lonely. And then his family comes. He was just waiting for them. He's super happy. He has a great life. And she's like, oh, it was terrible. Yeah, she's alone in the park now. This blonde girl who's not from her high school, from a different high school, sees her and says, you're a guitar player. My band needs a guitar player. Our guitar player has disappeared. Please come play second guitar for my band. And Bocchi, while this is exactly what she wants, is trying to tell her no, but she can't say no because then you would turn someone down and they might not like you. And if they don't like you, then there's something wrong with you. That's not personal experience. They go to the club, and she plays with them, and they're like, "Yeah, you kind of suck." And she's like, "No, I was supposed to wow them. What's going on?" It's great. This is one of the best jokes. And she's like, "Oh, this is over," and the credits start rolling.
Yes, that was really good.
And she said she's a water flea, and the credits say water flea instead of her character name. Very funny. So, but they're like, no, it's fine, you suck. And the reason she sucks is because she can't visually make eye contact and follow visual cues. She's keeping her head down, and she's not used to playing with other people. So she doesn't really know how to follow their rhythm, their cadence. So they go out and they perform, but she performs from inside a mango box, which they establish, hey, you could just be this. And this is where they nickname her Bocchi, meaning lonely. And so they'd have this terrible performance, and they're like, hey, we'll do better next time. And she's like, oh my God, there's going to be a next time. Yeah, that's the first episode.
Yep.
That's it.
But we can talk about these other bandmates. So the blonde girl on drums is Nijika. And what are you guys' thoughts on her?
She was okay. She just kind of turned into the driving force of the plot. If she was a narrator, it would have served the same purpose. She had a little bit of her own character growth that ended up being exposition, but she was... I hate to say this because I don't particularly feel this way, but she seemed so bland that in most scenes I'm actually more interested in Bocchi or the other characters, what they're doing, and she's just expositioning what they're doing. Besides that, I mean, she's a decent character. I didn't like her as much as the others.
I don't think I felt quite as strongly about her being bland. I don't know. They all had like a little bit different flavor. Bocchi stands out so much, and I mean Kita, who shows up later, they even say she has an aura, so so she stands out too.
Tora.
Yeah, and so like the two of them, they definitely drown everybody out, and Rio is just a great character. So I mean, I do see where you're coming from. Like of the four, she's definitely the most bland, but I guess it's like a base flavor if you're making a dish, right? It's got to be there. If it's not there, you're gonna miss it.
Yeah. Um. Gosh, guys, we read my diary. My thoughts were like, there's nothing wrong with this character, but every other character in the band is so strong of a personality and such a unique character that Nijika's just kind of there in comparison. It's not her, it's everyone else kind of washes her out. The only thing that I was able to come up with is that how everyone relates to Bocchi and in kind of a character analysis. And Nijika is the I'm doing this for good goals, which isn't even really that good of a character trait type of thing, but that's her opposite of Bocchi, or the contrast she gives to Bocchi is that while Bocchi's doing this for selfish reasons and starts to fall in love with this band, Nijika has these high-end goals and doing this for selfless reasons. It just has the drive to push them forward. But again, she's really the straight man, especially to Rio, and that works for some of the jokes. There's nothing wrong with her. I don't dislike her at all. But she's like at the bottom of my favorite character list because, which is a good sign, right? There's not like terrible characters in this. They have a really strong cast, and someone has to be on the bottom.
Yeah, she's definitely there.
Yeah.
All right, then we have the other introvert of the group, the bass player Rio. Your guys' thoughts on Rio?
Jeremy, why don't you go first on this one?
So I love this character. Rio cracks me up. She's the sort of introvert that really doesn't care, doesn't need people. She'll just up and leave in the middle of a conversation or in the middle of everybody else is doing something. She's bored or she wants to go get ice cream, so she'll go and disappear. She'll come back with ice cream, or she'll just disappear for the day because she's off in the record studio listening to records instead of doing what the group was gonna do. So she cracked me up, but at the same time, she enjoys the company of other people. Like she will say things like, "Oh, she's so cute. I don't know why people don't want to hang out with her. She's so fun." Right? So you can tell that she's genuinely engaged at times, but she just doesn't need very much. So I felt a lot of empathy with this character. I connected a lot with Rio. Plus she's just so mischievous. Like she's such a little snot. And I always have a soft spot for those characters. They crack me up. I love them. It's super endearing. So yeah, she's a great character.
I really enjoyed. I think this is probably one of the best things about Nijika is her relationship with Rio. Without Rio, my feelings still stand, but when they're together, their bickering is pretty funny. Also, Rio's aloofness is one of my favorite things about her because she is so standoffish, but then when you get close to her, she so overtly tries to take advantage of you. It's endearing.
So good.
She is a great addition to this group because you have two very bubblegum characters. You've got your introvert that's like crippled by social anxiety, and then you've got this sociopath.
Yes.
And so it's a really great dynamic.
I'll pay you next month.
Yeah, this is my favorite character as well. She's so funny. Her jokes work so well. The fact that she has that devious side. She's also a bit of a hipster. My favorite joke that they have with her is when they're designing the T-shirts, and she decided she's not going. She's just gonna go hang out in town, because that's what she does, right? I feel like being alone today, and she's perfectly comfortable doing that. I love that. But then she's sending in her T-shirt submissions, and it's two pictures of food. And she's like, okay, but which one should I have for dinner? Like she did not care about the T-shirts. That's a great classic Rio move. It's also the fact that she's a rich girl. She comes from a rich family, but constantly just blows all her allowance on instruments. So is always bumming money and begging people for food, eating roots from the ground. Weeds. She's fantastic. She's light in every scene she's in. One of my favorite characters. And again, that contrast to Bocchi of a healthy introvert. Like, you don't have to have social anxiety introvert. You can just be like, I'm comfortable being alone, which is the opposite of Bocchi. Bocchi doesn't want to be alone, even though that's where her status quo resides. So while I don't relate to Rio, she's a nice contrast.
Yeah.
All right. So after that first terrible concert, we start with Bocchi taking an ice bath, and we find out the reason for this is because the band has a meeting. They try to talk about stuff like school and favorite music, and Bocchi struggles through the whole thing, especially school. She does not like school. School is just a black hole of depression for her. But they eventually get to they discuss the quotas. So to play at this club, which Nijika's sister is the owner and manager of, but to play at any club, a band has to set a quota of tickets. So they have to sell a certain amount of tickets. Anything undersold, they had to pay for. Anything they sell over, they get to split the profits with the club. So they discuss those club quotas, and to pay for them so they can start performing, they are like, we all have to have jobs, which to Bocchi is huge. Guys, you remember your first job? Was it huge? Was it social anxiety? Jason, were you like, I'm ready to get it?
I got my first job at 16 working for the school district, and I was fixing computers for my teachers.
That's not customer service. I don't care about that. Jeremy?
100% customer service. What are you talking about?
Teachers that you already knew.
Well, there was a power dynamic, and I was able to overcome that. Okay. But also, it wasn't a big deal for me. But for Bocchi, it was a huge deal.
I was my grandparents ran a shipping company, and so I got to man the cash register for that and like do the packaging and everything from like 12, 14. So I was pretty used to that, but I would say that the first real job I had was 16. It was in a steel fab. I wasn't technically supposed to be working there. I started by painting the inside of the offices and then gradually worked my way out into the actual steel fabrication area and worked out there until I was like 16 and a half. So it wasn't a big deal. Then it went to a grocery store. That was a little bit more intimidating, but still not too bad.
Burger flipper, about 17. And I freaked out so much I threw up every day before I went to work.
Dang.
I worked there for about a month, and I started getting used to it, but then I found a job at a public library. I was a page. I just put books back on the shelves, and that was heaven.
Yep.
No one can talk. Everyone's reading. Everyone's quiet. It's just me and the books. I get to see the latest issues of Spider-Man as they come in. It was when I retire and have to do like an extra job because my retirement's garbage. I'm going back to the library. That's my dream. I'm just be an old man putting books on the shelf. That was heaven.
Yeah, I gotta say I do feel for you. I used to do that before school, in elementary school. Yep.
This was a funny anime. I think that's why it resonates with so many people, though, is that there are a lot of people with their own tales of social anxiety, introverts and extroverts. You know, there's plenty of times where you can have that, even if you're used to it, or more extroverted. And so I think there's a little bit for everyone to attach to here, and I think that again is why this got so popular, even though it's not in our wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So anyway, the reason she was in the ice bath was so she'd get sick and not have to go to work on her first day. But nope, perfect health.
Yeah, when she first started doing the ice bath, I was like, "Oh man, is she doing it because of health? Like, what is she doing?" Because I'd read about it for like weightlifters and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But no, she genuinely was like, "I want to get sick." That was pretty good.
So she does her first day of work and has to learn to serve customers, make drinks, serve customers in the club, which she does from like under the counter, just puts the cup up. Perfect service, but you have to look them in the eye. I can't do that. I'm just doing this. Yeah, so she eventually, though, has a talk with Nijika, who's like, I just want us as a band just to have fun. I want us to be a fun band. And that inspires Bocchi enough that she actually manages to serve a customer face to face, eye to eye. And that is her big first step. And they're like, that's your first step. And she's like, that felt like a mile.
Yeah.
Actually, I really like the visualization here of her daydream. It looks like a scene from Fist of the North Star.
Yeah,
and there's these steps that are going on for miles and miles, and she's just got the tattered cape, and she takes that first step, and then she looks up. She's like, "Oh, I haven't made any progress."
We should talk about the daydreams, because one big aspect of Bocchi is that she has this constant internal fantasy world going on in her head, and I called out to you guys. It reminds me of JD from Scrubs, Zach Braff's character, who was the main character, but was constantly, we were jumping into jokes through fantasy setting. It's almost the exact same setup for comedy that they use. Obviously, he wasn't freaking out about social anxiety issues, but he had the internal narration. Oh, and we need to talk about internal narration.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was kind of annoying, just because it wasn't distinct in the version of the anime I was watching. I
was for me.
Right, so
it's very easy to understand.
So I complained to the group online, like, "Hey, I've started it. It's really, I'm liking the jokes. We'll see how it goes." I said, but I cannot tell the difference if they're not showing her mouth, if she's talking or if she's internal monologuing. And Jason, you pointed out it's italicized. The subtitles are italicized. Barely, my man. Like, it's like, eek.
Did you watch it on Crunchyroll?
Yes, I did.
Okay, it was very distinct for me. Like, I could see it easily.
If like a regular sentence and an italicized sentence were next to each other, I could see the difference. It was hard to tell, especially like I'm looking up from my notes. I got to read it real quick, and then I'm back down, and I'm like,
"Oh,
was that
yeah, I'm not taking notes."
Or not? Also, if you're watching it in Japan, it wouldn't have subtitles, so there still should be a sound indicator that we are internal instead of external.
That's a fair point.
Make it a reverb or an echo or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is where I got to Scrubs, because I was thinking, like, well, Scrubs did that. How'd they do that? And it was a bit of a reverb where it's like, oh, this is clearly like an omnipotent voice we're hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we can go back to the story. She goes home from work and she gets sick.
Well, and she's disappointed that she's sick, because she actually found herself enjoying the company, and she was looking forward to going again.
Right.
And now she's sick.
But now she's got to go back to school, which she was not looking forward to now that she's healthy.
She wants to get sick again.
She's like, maybe I can get sick again. We see her eating alone under the stairs in like the janitor closet area.
Okay. This was kind of silly, but at the same time, I liked it. I get it. It's a good.
She was definitely happy there. Like, she felt content.
Yeah.
And this will be a theme.
Yeah, it's a good spot
throughout the anime.
Until I hate eating even in work, but I hate eating in a public area. When I was in elementary school, I had a lot of friends, but I moved, in high school, and I knew no one, and I hated eating in the cafeteria. There's nothing worse than 100 people around you all talking, and you're alone. That is just insane. But even in like a work office where it's like we wouldn't talk to each other if we weren't forced to be in this room together. And now you get to see me put food in my face. I don't anymore because I work from home. It's great. I used to take all my lunches in my car.
Same here.
So sitting in the parking garage in the dark in my car eating food and watching Bocchi do this, I was like, you don't have to be that accurate, anime. But yeah, so that relatable. She overhears them talking about Kita, who they're like, "Oh, you're such a great singer, and you play guitar too." And she's like, "Wait, we need a vocalist and rhythm guitarist. That's perfect." So she stalks Kita to her classroom, tries to communicate. She makes an effort. It fails horribly, and she runs back to under the stairs. And play whenever something bad happens. He like quickly composes songs of mourning and depression. But Kita hears this song because she followed her and is like, "Oh my god, you play guitar! That's so awesome!" So this is where we officially meet Kita. Your guys' thoughts on the fourth band member, Kita?
She was cute, and actually, I really liked the contrast. No, I'm sorry, the dichotomy. No, there are so many funny scenes where her personality is coming out so bright that not only Bocchi like blocks her from her vision as if it's a sun ray, but like the other two as well are like, it's so rainbowy. Yeah. I liked that even though she was the extrovert of the group, she had a lot of flaws about her, and she had her own fears. She had her own anxieties. It's just that the social aspect was not one of them. And so watching her character growth as well shined out really well throughout the anime. So I was, she was decent to watch.
So yeah, I totally agree. She was cute. She was funny. She was very much the. I think when you have a group of introverts like this, or two introverts like this, you really need a character like that. Not just like in an anime, but like if you have introverts, you need an extrovert in the group to actually facilitate any kind of outward inclusion. Otherwise, those introverts, they're not going to. Like I wouldn't. I feel like I need somebody to stand behind, be like, shove them in the front and be like, you like being in the front, you go for it. And so that's kind of what, Kita does for them. And that's pretty cute. But I did like how she was gentle about it, right? Like she understood that they didn't like that. They didn't want that. Just because it was something that she really liked didn't mean that they had to, or that she should push them to either. That was kind of cool. And so there were times when the anime did a really good job of even just animating her expression as she would turn and look. Like one of the times I'm thinking of is when during one of the performances where something happens and she just kind of fills in and deals with the problem. And then she's like giving a knowing look towards Bocchi. It's like, come on, don't fall prey to your instinct right now. Come on, we need you to finish this. And I thought that was really cool. It was like there was a really deep empathy and an elegance about her approach with her extroversion. Like she wasn't just a crazy elephant running around in the room being loud and noisy. She had some, dignity and awareness of herself.
Yeah. Another great character, another great polar opposite of Bocchi, but I liked what you said too, Jeremy, but I really liked what Jason said, was that she wasn't portrayed as like flawless or the awesomest ever as an extrovert, because that can happen with introverts. I know, I think I've said this before, growing up with Jason and watching him be able to like make conversation with anyone. I remember being like, he's amazing. That's so amazing. But this reminds us that everyone's human. it's not just woe is me, I'm on one side and not the other. Everyone has their own flaws. We see very quickly here that she's the runaway guitarist of the band. She was already in this band, ran away from it because she bit off more than she could chew. She jumped in with both feet, like in a very extroverted way, but now is racked with guilt because she let them down, and so yeah, just like you said, Jason, I think that's a really good thing to call out, that they show her as a full-rounded character as well. Whereas like Dress Up Darling was like, she's extroverted and she's just perfect in every way in what she does. So that is a better portrayal here. And no, I don't think Jason's awesome anymore. I got over it.
I had to make sure you edited that, huh?
It happened in the Kisniver episode.
We can't go against the lore, guys. Jeremy won't like us anymore. We're not consistent with our lore.
That's right. We've laid down the rules. You got to live by them now.
All right, so Bocchi does ask her, come join our band. And she's like, I can't, because I can't actually play guitar. But you can. You can teach me. Teach me guitar. That'll be awesome. And Bocchi's like, I don't want to. Yes.
Right?
But she's like, okay, come to our club and meet our band. So she takes Kita, and as they're getting closer, Kita's like, this is familiar. And then she finds out they're going to Club Starry, the club that they perform in. She's like, no, I can't go there. I can't go there. And they run into Nijika and Rio, and they're like, that's the runaway guitarist. And so it all comes to light. And she reveals, as she tells the whole story to Bocchi later, that she is obsessed with Rio and joined this band figuring, you just got to strum it, right? I can do that. I can be in this band. And then realized, like, no, playing a guitar is really, really hard, and not able to tell the truth. She just flaked on them, disappeared, and has felt horrible about it ever since. And so they talk with her. She comes into the club, and they actually offer her to help with the club for that night, and she's awesome at everything. And Bocchi has a hard time watching her because she's popular, everyone likes her, she serves the drinks. Bocchi has to teach her how to make drinks, and Bocchi can't even say words while she's doing it. She's just like visually pour here. Burns herself. But yeah, eventually Kita reveals, I don't deserve to be in this band, so she's leaving. Bocchi goes to save the day, stops her from walking out, and crashes into a wall and pulls down a curtain and causes a huge mess. But it works. They convince Kita, look, Bocchi will teach you guitar. You're going to be a great vocalist. And she's in the band. She's back in the band. And then, the reason her guitar, she did buy a guitar, and one of the reasons they wanted her to say her fingers are calloused. She's been learning guitar. She's been working really hard, and that's enough. But she had a bass guitar. She's like, no, it has 6 strings. They're like, some bass guitars have 6 strings. So she borrows one from Rio, and that's her guitar.
Not something I knew. That was cool.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. There's some basses out there. It's probably like, no, I need 2 extra strings. I'm that cool. So we see some more training. They have a band meeting, and they decide they got to be more band-like. But in this band meeting, they also decide, Bocchi, you're going to write lyrics. Rio's going to write music. I thought music had to be written first, but apparently you can write lyrics first. I didn't know that.
I have no idea.
It could be either or.
Doesn't the lyrics have to? I guess that you, as long as you set a pentameter. What's the
metronome?
The way you would do it is you would write you would write one chorus, and then you would write your I forget what they're called, but like the sections of song that are like
Right.
poemish.
Yeah, you would have to write a rhythm
And
to the
then-
lyrics, and then the music writer would just have to meet that rhythm.
And then the music, you could then slot it in, and however the music goes, you'd put your chorus in those longer form slots.
When they started reading her lyrics without music and, of course, being translated into English, none of it rhymed whatsoever. So I was like, how are they going to make music for this very well? But obviously, it's Japanese, sung in Japanese, so it makes sense.
So she goes home to try to write lyrics, and she tries she's like, I want to get a super happy mindset. Well, that doesn't work. And she's like, okay, I'm going to write a super encouraging pop song. That doesn't work because Bocchi's music is
Dark.
sad, depressing, rain.
That's it's funny because she mentions this quite often. She wants to do something to impress people because it's trendy. She uses trendy, that word, a lot. And I think that's because she has this vision of what people like, because that's the monster she's created for herself in her own head of what society is, because she hasn't spent enough time with society to form a proper vision of reality, because she's so anxious about going to do that. So even if something doesn't make sense, she's just like, ooh, I think this is trendy. So as she's writing these lyrics, that's what she's doing. She's going, what do I think this monster of society is going to like? Well, things that are popular are poppy. And I know you're just about to get into it, but I love what Rio is about to like tell her. So I'll let you get to that.
Well, but before you do, real quick.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you got something you were gonna say?
No, I was just going to the next beat of the story, which is before the Rio conversation. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask if you think that she was actually right or that she wasn't. I mean, like statistically, do you think that the happy, silly pop music sells more, and that it would take a niche? God, I can't say it.
Yes and no. I think without a producer or a machine behind them, no, because the space is so flooded. Getting your song out there is very difficult. So being niche will get you a larger audience faster, but you won't breach market popularity for longer, I think. So it just depends on your strategy.
Welcome everyone to our anime book club podcast.
so it's more about like, because it's obviously it's demographic, right? Like which demographic is she targeting? So it's more about the people that are actually going to come to this starry cafe and listen to music are probably not the people that are going to be buying the mass-produced stuff that's going to be super happy. Okay, I see where you're coming from there then. Okay.
My first choice was a Star Wars podcast.
Right before the new episodes came out.
Right?
That wouldn't have gone over well.
No. There was no space there, and it was
no.
Anime's good. You guys are my favorite number 2.
I feel so hurt.
All right. The band contacts her. She thinks she's in trouble for not writing lyrics because it's been like multiple days, and she meets. She's apologizing. She's like, they're like, we don't care. No, it's fine. We need to take a picture. It's photo op day for our band. So they scour the city, which sucks for Bocchi. She's like, can we just go to a private place and do this? They're like, no, that's expensive. We have to find public venues and explore. So they
go
around.
Didn't bring our instruments. That freaked her out really bad.
Eventually, they settle on a wall that Bocchi finds, and they settle on a jumping picture, which she's like, I don't know how to jump, and that might seem silly to most people, but my daughter, who's now an adult, 21-year-old woman, but I remember she was like 14 or 15, and I was like, hey, someone came up, and I was like, jump up on the step. She's like, I don't know how to jump. I'm like, no, it's one step. She's like, Dad, I haven't jumped since I was like 8. I'm like, bend knees, jump. I literally had to walk her through how to jump, and it was just so when Bocchi's like, I haven't jumped in forever, I don't know how to do this. I was like, that's true, that happens.
Wow.
Yeah, they after getting one with Bocchi's panties in it, they do a second one. This one works out really good. I did skip over the scene with attention whore monster. They tell Bocchi to get an Instagram or Instagram, whatever. And
Their
and
knockoff brand.
she starts spazzing on the ground in her fantasy world. She's in a Godzilla suit, stomping around, taking selfies. I'm an attention whore monster.
Yes, that was good.
That was a good one. Okay, so after everyone leaves, she wants to show Rio her lyrics, and Rio's in this trendy cafe. So Bocchi comes in, she's like, "What is up, people?" Thinking that's how you walk into trendy cafes. Anyway, she sits with Rio, she shows her the lyrics, and Rio's like, "Are you happy with these?" And she talks about her last band that she was in that basically sold out. They decided to go the popular route, and I didn't want to be a part of that. I think you need to write lyrics that are true to you. Also, I don't have any money, but I was really hungry, so thank you for coming. Could you pick up my tab? I'll pay you back. I don't want to. Yes.
Yep.
Basically.
So then later we see Bocchi brings her real lyrics that she's written, because she writes lyrics all the time, and she brings them to the whole band, and it's her dark, depressing emo band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's that kind of stuff. And they're like, it's a little dour, but it works. She's like, well, what about Kita, who's like so upbeat? And she's like, that's gonna be great that she's singing. Like, we have this super cheerful, happy person singing these super dour lyrics, which I also agree. That's a good gimmick to have for a band. That's the hook you're needing.
Well, the first thing that popped out at me was like, oh, Baby Rock.
Yeah, Baby Metal. Yeah.
Or Baby Metal, yeah.
Yep.
See, I was thinking Fall Out Boy.
You would.
That's
Fall Out
good.
Boy sounds very poppy, but when you listen to their lyrics, it's all like doom and gloom. And woe is me.
I'm trying to look up the lyrics just to refresh my memory, but they're all in Japanese. It's not helping me.
Okay, so I want you all to know, because this is confession episode night, right?
Right.
I won't judge you. Except
I have written that Hitori covers her room in piss.
What?
It's supposed to be pics.
Pics?
But my handwriting's terrible. It said piss. Yeah,
It'd be
so
a very different anime.
She takes the band photo and makes a ton of copies and pastes it all over her wall. Again, just someone who's overjoyed about having friends and doesn't know how to deal with that. All right, in the next episode, it's payday. They get their money, which immediately all goes to the quota. Bocchi was like, yeah, I can do stuff. No, it's gone.
Welcome to your first paychecks. That's what will always happen.
Rio has her song, and so they go to manager/sister, and Nijiko's like, okay, give us a spot. Here's the money for the quota. Let's go. And manager/sister is like, no. Now, Jason, you had told us that in our pre-show that this is your favorite character. So do you want to just tell us why?
Yeah, so this character is in quite a few different other animes, like this personality type. But what I appreciated about this character is that she is secretly rooting for them, but she's guiding them in a very adult and almost militant way. And it's to show them that the world is not going to be kind to them, and that they're going to need some backbone and they're going to need some grit. And there's a few times where she's like, I need to push in the encouragement category here, because she needs to feel some like she's seen. And I really liked her approach of how do I keep them going? Because I want them to go, but I want them to also know that if they don't put in the effort, they're not going to get their goal. And she was also really funny with another character that we're going to see later on who likes to drink. And she's also her partner or like other employee. She's just got some really great one-liners as well. But yeah, I liked what she served in the story plot.
Very cool. I don't have any extra thoughts on her. Jeremy, do you?
Not really. I thought it kind of surprised me that she wound up sort of being surrogate mother for her sister, because the parents were, one's dead, the other's like never there, I guess, if I remember correctly. Which I didn't see until they said that, and then I was like, oh, okay, so that's why she's behaving this way. Everything is an education because she's the mom. Makes sense.
Okay, so she says, no way, your band sucked. And she's like, you let us go on. That was a favor to you because you're my sister. I have a business to run here. So Nijika runs out upset, and the others go after her except for Bocchi. And
what did she say? She like yells at her about like sleeping with her stuffed animals.
Yeah, you can't. Big talk from someone who can't sleep without her stuffed animals or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Rio's like, I have a picture. Because Rio's the best.
Yep.
So manager talks to Bocchi, and then we jump to the park where everyone's talking to Nijika, and Bocchi shows up, and she's like, guys, I have to tell you something, but she's too exasperated because she just got talked to by a person, so she has to crawl into a pipe. Just have a minute. See, that I've never had to crawl into a pipe, guys.
Right?
A lot of stuff I feel connection with, but I'm like, I don't think I've ever just crawled into construction and waited out.
Or a trash can.
Yeah.
No.
So what she explains is that, hey, she is going to let us audition. We can audition for a spot on the schedule. And Nijika's like, well, why didn't she just say that instead? Which her sister does do. Her sister like always says things just the wrong way, even though her intent is good. She's terrible at communicating. So they take their original song that Rio has wrote and that Bocchi has written the lyrics for, and they start practicing, and they work really, really hard at getting it. Also, no, that's after. The audition comes. And after talking with Nijika the night before, Bocchi realizes how much she cares about the band, and so for the first time she's playing for the band and not just for herself, so she plays really good. And I guess this is as good a time as any. Guys, I am terrible at music. I love music. I love music as much as I love movies. But I felt like if I had the money and the equipment, I could make a movie. Like, I get it. A decent movie. I don't get music. And I've tried to learn guitar. It's beyond my comprehension. As much as I jam to it, and there's songs that are fire, like I always say, I don't get it. And all these songs sounded the same to me.
You mean that they sounded like they were at the same level of performance and skill,
yes.
right? Yeah,
if the anime wasn't literally telling me, oh, they're doing better now. And in fact, in this, when Bocchi comes to her realization, I'm going to play for the band, she starts jamming, and everyone turns to her. And I first thought, well, like, did she fart or something? I didn't get it. I thought she was strumming really good before, and she's strumming really good after it, and she got a little louder, I guess. But Jeremy, you said you heard it. You can definitely hear it.
Yeah, I definitely picked up on, like, in the first one that they played, it was a bit of a cacophony. Like, the drummer was off a little bit. The singing was off tune a little bit. She wasn't hitting her notes right. And just overall, it definitely felt... There was one time when I was younger that I went to an actual amateur band and listened. It was some friends. And it sounded like that, where it's like, they know how to play, like, way better than I do, but it's still not what you would expect. Like, if you popped an MP3 on, I was going to say popped a CD in. It's not what you'd expect to hear if you heard a professional, recorded version of a song. And even live performances, sometimes you hear a little bit of, it's not quite there. It's a bit off tune. I've heard that a few times, like with Coheed and Cambria is probably one of the only ones I've listened to in person in a concert. And yeah, they sound distinctly different than if you're listening to, a recorded version where they don't make the mistakes and the singing is all on tune. So I definitely heard the difference between the first one and the second one. I did not really hear that much of a difference between the second one and the next ones, though. But I think there's only one more. Those sounded about the same to me. Maybe marginally better, maybe. But I think I'm kind of stretching there even to say that.
I definitely heard the difference between that first audition actually the first time on stage and then their audition and then because the one on stage, they definitely had some mistakes, and the drummer was a little slow on the beat, but like, I'm not a huge music critic, but I took band for enough years in school that I've got a decent understanding of how it's supposed to flow.
Okay, now here's the fun part. I played flute for 2 years. So the way my brain works is I can do the technical part. Like if you tell me here's the note, and again on a flute, press this button, blow in the hole, the sound that comes out is the sound you're supposed to make, and then you just keep doing whatever's on the sheet. I could do that. But I could never, ever, in those 2 years, play a note on my flute and say, that sounds a little sharp. Yeah, that's not quite right. I have no ear. I have no ear.
Interesting.
Like I said, I could get, and I know that, like when I started learning guitar, I started learning, okay, if I put my fingers here and I strum, that's the right thing to do. But I didn't know if it sounded right. And my wife would come in like, hey, you need to tune your guitar. I do? Could you do it for me? Or I'd have to have a little machine that said, no, you're high.
Yeah.
It is my weakness at things I can do. It sucks because I love music. I think people who can play music are just amazing. My wife, my daughters, all my family. I'm surrounded by musicians. My wife is learning violin, and it's like her fifth instrument. She picks up self-taught. My daughter learns a new song on piano every week.
That must really upset you.
It's a bit frustrating to be like to see it and be like, I can almost touch it. I'm doing a lot of woe is me in this podcast, though. I have a good life. I'm happy. I'm fine. I married an extrovert. That took care of like 90% of the stress of my life. It gets better. Is what Bocchi doesn't really get to is that it gets a lot easier and it gets a lot better.
That's season 8.
Season 8. However, if you suck at music, you will probably always suck at music. All right. They worked hard for the audition. Yeah, okay, we got through that. The audition was great. Not great. The sisters still like, you still messed up a little bit here and there, but your voice as a band has come through, and so you got something here. But she also recognizes that Bocchi is more skilled than she's realized up to this point. And she's like, I need to let Bocchi know that I know how good she is. And Bocchi, who's thinking of quitting her job, or there's something else that's going on. I forget. Anyway, the sister goes, I see you. And Bocchi's like, what does that mean?
She's watching me.
She's watching me. What have I done?
Like, I saw this, I was like, I can picture. There's so many moments in this anime, and this was one of them that I can go, if Troy were a teenage girl, this is the reaction I would expect.
If teenage girl, if my boss calls me tomorrow and just goes, I see you, I'm going to spend 2 weeks thinking about what that means. And not one of the thoughts will be, she realizes how great that would.
No, not once.
Okay. I want to stop talking about me, though.
It's not going to happen.
All right. Now, so they get their concert. Also, we find out that manager had kept that spot open on the schedule just for them. as hard as she was, she really and goes into what Jason explained about her, how she actually feels about this band. But now they got to sell their quota tickets, and that means each of them has to spell 5. And Bocchi's like, "Oh my God, that's my mom, my dad, my sister, my dog. I don't know a 5th person." Of course, she finds out you can't give it to your dog, and you can't bring a little kid to a beer-serving music club.
And she couldn't bring her grandma. Oh no, that's because of the storm later. But anyway.
Yeah, she thought about grandma, but grandma said she probably couldn't. No, they were gonna bring grandma. You're right.
Grandma was going to babysit the kids.
Yeah,
The
okay.
little girl.
That's right. That's why grandma couldn't come.
So she had mom and dad. So she has 2 tickets sold. She's got to sell 3 more. She goes out and ends up through this whole episode is trying to sell these tickets and ends up missing band practice. And the rest of her band's freaking out. But while she's in the park freaking out, this drunk lady comes up, stumbles upon her, and is like, "Save me, save me!" So she gives her miso soup and water, and the lady's like, "Hey, you got a guitar." Also, the lady starts drinking immediately again, opening what looks like juicy boxes, but are apparently sake, pounding them down, and is like, "Look, there's 2 things I love, and that's drinking and my bass." And she's like, "But you don't have a bass." "I forgot it." They have to go. So she gets Bocchi to help her go look for her bass. And she's talking to Bocchi about, like, "Oh, you're going to be an alcoholic too. It's going to be great."
Such a
like,
bad-
and so Bocchi's like fantasizing, living in her closet, surrounded by beer cans, and like, that's my future. No, but she realizes Bocchi needs to sell tickets. She's like, "I'm going to help you." She gets her bass, she gets some gear, and she's like, "Let's put on a street concert, and we'll feature you, and then we'll sell the tickets." And they do. Bocchi does it with her eyes closed, but eventually opens her eyes, one eye, and wins over this crowd of like just a couple people until the fuzz show up and put a stop to their performance. Cop tells them they got to move along. But especially these 2 girls are like, "You were really great. We're gonna come to your concert. Can we have tickets?" So and then the drunk lady also buys the tickets. So she ends up selling all 5. And then the drunk lady's like, "I forgot money to the train. Can I have that money back? Can I borrow it for you?" And this never introduces herself, just leaves. We learn later her name is Hero, though. So let's talk about her. Your guys' thoughts on Hero? Heroi? I don't know. Drunk lady.
She's. It's hard to. It's hard to laugh at her because she's so funny, but then you realize she's just an alcoholic around children, and then the reality of it just kind of comes crashing in.
There's a lot of sadness there.
Right?
Yep.
So I like her and I don't. And and actually she's probably the heaviest character in this entire anime because she's going through this crisis of wanting to be like this rock star. But to do it, she had to start drinking. But now that she's here, she's like, well, I don't want to stop drinking because I really like it, even though it's ruining all my relationships. So she's a really complicated character because like I want to like her, but then I also want to not like her. And then same with everyone else in her life. I mean, later on, she shows up at a school drunk with booze. Like, really? Like, I get the
So
joke
much,
you're telling, but this is so inappropriate.
Yep.
So yeah, that's it. Overall, I like this character.
Mhm. I think, like Rio, she brings an element of mischievousness to the anime that it desperately needs. And so I kind of give her a pass, although the same exact things were going through my mind, like what is the message here? You know? But the fact is that, the anime does a very good job of making every character call her out all the time. They're just constantly calling her out. So the anime is not giving mixed messages or the wrong message here. It definitely is saying this is not good behavior, but at the same time, she is funny. And and so I think she helps to balance that out. So it's not too sweet, it's not too wholesome and wonderful and heartwarming. You have a little bit of just you know, this drunk being a dork. I do wonder if she still drinks because her nerves have not changed, because we never see her sober. It just doesn't happen. And she even describes her life as a cycle of, you know, I had so many worries, and it's a whole lot easier if all I have to worry about is, you know, where my beer is coming from or my sake. And so, I genuinely am curious, like, when the last time she was sober was and what she's like when she's sober. Part of me kind of thinks that she's not as drunk as she pretends in some of the scenes, even though she does, you know, they draw her with the red on her face. There's times where she'll open her eyes and she's pretty lucid, and other times where she's not. So
She's a high functioning drunk.
is that what it is?
Basically.
Yeah. So still a funny character. I really enjoyed her.
Second favorite character for me,
Mhm.
behind Rio. One of the aspects that I really is that her relation to Bocchi, just like the other characters, are kind of like polar opposites. Or here's an introvert that has a healthy mindset and doesn't have the social anxiety. Hiroi is Bocchi if she doesn't go through character growth, and that's actually it's subtle, but it's also sometimes called out a little blatantly. She even points out, like, I had to drink to do what you just did.
Yeah.
And I complimented how well Bocchi goes through her character arcs, and you know we see her changing, and the show does a great job of showing us that. But then they have this character who comes in who's like, I was in the same boat you were in. I wanted to do the same thing you were going to do, and I couldn't overcome it. So I found a crutch.
Yeah.
And one of the big things about Bocchi is that this is it. Her growth is never to be removing social anxiety. It's managing it. It's learning to live with it and adapting to it, finding ways through it and past it. But it'll always be there. And that's shown through Hiroi, who's the only way she could handle that was through drinking. So I actually think it's a really cool character to bring in. But I do admit this episode, I was like, what is this choice? This is a weird random character to come in. She was in the OP and I kept seeing her and like, a drunk? We're gonna have this, and I thought she'd be like a funny in the background character, but she becomes this mentor to Bocchi. I'm like, that's weird. But when she explained how she was exactly like Bocchi in high school, wanted to be in a band, had to start drinking to do it, and now that, and just like you said, Jeremy, I think that's still there. I think she gets by with the alcohol. I thought it was a very cool way to reflect on what Bocchi is going through in these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so she's gone. She'll come back though. We learn about the that's the next episode. It's T-shirt time. Everyone comes to Bocchi's house to design T-shirts except for Rio because she's having a me day. And I'm gonna go through this fast, but Jeremy, I know you really love some of the jokes here, so call them out after as soon as I go through it. But basically, they don't do much T-shirt designing. We do get to see some, but it's Bocchi trying to invite people into her house for the first time, not really knowing how to handle that, doing things way wrong. But I also there's also the family members who are like, these people are real.
Oh,
Our
my
daughter
God.
has friends.
They
And
don't
then-
do anything to like salvage her self-image or dignity
No,
whatsoever.
It is. We thought you were photoshops for
Yes.
sure.
They
Like,
say it
straight
straight
to
up
their
in front of
face.
her to her friends.
It's so bad.
That's harsh.
Any other things you wanted to call out in this storyline where
Oh.
they watch movies, play games, basically hang out at Bocchi's house?
I think one of the things that I loved was the fact that she goes so overboard because she's so excited. She's never had friends over to her house. She's never had friends. She puts a banner up outside of her house that's like wishing band Kasoku or whatever they're called, wishing them well, you know. And then when they show up at the door, like she's expecting big party time. So she's got on like star glasses and a mustache. Like she's already in this party mode. Which what makes it so funny is the fact that it's so awkward. Like this is so far out of, like you were saying, Jason. She sees the entire world around her as just this big beast, right? Of what her expectation of everybody's behavior is, and so she expects them to show up, I guess, wearing these glasses or thinking that's cool. Like this is what you do in a party.
This is the trendy thing to do.
Yeah, and I loved it. Like when what's her name, Nijika, was like, no, we're here to do a job. We're not here to party. We're not here to have fun. Stop trying to have fun, Kita. And so Mochi's like sulking over, like sadly with a needle, and starts popping her own balloons. Like some of this was just so good. She's like, you're right. And she's got like, they walk in her room and she's got on the projector, and it's like the whole room is dark and it's putting all these, it's like she just goes so far overboard, and it's super funny. And then when you combine that with when she leaves and everything's dark, you kind of almost get like a horror moment, because some of the wallpaper comes down, or the wrapping that she's got up comes down, and you see all of the sigils on the wall that are like, you know, binding some evil spirit there. And then they see like just dozens and dozens of photos, which we know are the ones that she had put all over her wall. In a creepy way. Like, I mean, obviously she had no creepy intent, but like if you just show me that room without any context whatsoever, is that a stalker? Is it a serial killer? Like, why is this person doing that? And so that's what, you know, they're going through the same mental process of like, wow, this is a lot of photos of us. This is kind of weird. And now there's like sigils on the wall and seals on the wall, which we know was because the parents thought maybe something was wrong with their daughter, so they had an exorcist come and exorcise her. So they're still out there. Like, it was a very good, I thought the jokes were very on point. The timing was great. This is the first episode where I was like, I'm on board 100% for this entire episode. Every joke hit really well for me. Yeah, even when like the da 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 da, there was like the child music that was playing as she turned to ash. I don't even remember what had happened that was the end of the joke, but it was so good.
I do love the bit because they make her dress up because her mom buys her clothes. They're like, oh, you have something other than a pink jumpsuit, and they make her put on clothes. They're like, oh, you're really cute. We're gonna do your hair, and they like reached up as soon as they pull her bangs back, she dies into dust.
Yes.
And then the spores fill the air, and they breathe them in, and they're dying. They've inherited the curse of Bocchi.
Yes, it's so overly dramatic. Like, it's melodrama to the max, and it worked so well with that little child in the background. Da 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 da. Very, very good.
My favorite joke is after they've gone in, the random guy just walking down the street, seeing the poster and like jumping back, like what? Just randomly cut to this guy who freaks out from the poster. That was a good inclusion.
That was pretty good.
Yep.
All right, at the end of this episode, once they just go with Nijika's design, which he already had anyway. She just wanted to make it democratic, but it was already decided. Mm-hmm. They learn that Typhoon is coming on the day of their concert, and they're like, "No, it should be okay. It says it probably isn't coming here." And Bocchi speaks up. No, we should make rain charms anyway, which of course aren't going to do anything. But this is like a first for Bocchi in character growth and not having to call it out from a gymnasium. Sorry. Anyway, I just really liked that moment. And then it is concert day, and there's bad turnout due to the storm. We have Hiroi who shows up, drunk, of course. The two girls from the street performance show up, so Bocchi's fans. And then basically a bunch of people who came to see another band, and even though there's not many of them. So they go out and they perform their first song. It's the same song they auditioned with, and Bocchi's noticing that the drums are off. The Kita is making mistakes that she never makes in practice anymore. And the drums and the bass are out of sync. And so when the song ends and the crowd's like, all right, I guess we should have come here later. This was kind of a waste of time. Bocchi just starts jamming a solo to lead them into the second song and kind of hypes them all up, and they play that second song, and it gets the crowd all fired up, and they do much better. I did not notice a difference in the songs. That sounded just fine.
It was subtle.
Yeah.
You know, in Beck, Mongolian Chop Squad, like they actually misplayed notes, and I could hear that, and I was like, oh, I get it. Like he's nervous, or
They misplayed harmonies with this one.
it's a world I can never be a part of. Oh yeah, then they go out to the party afterwards, and usual hijinks. Kita is Instagramming her food, ordering trendy ways. Bocchi tries to do it, orders Denver Grand
Machu
Canyon.
Picchu something.
Machu Picchu something. She's like, "What do you
Grand
want?"
Canyon.
French fries. I just want French fries.
Yeah.
But also Hiroi comes along and gets drunk.
Surprise.
But Bocchi has a conversation with Nijika, and this is where we learn Nijika's my sister took care of me, and her sister used to be in a band, and it's kind of insinuated that she left the band to take care of her sister and started a club instead. So Nijika wants to make the club really famous by making a famous band that will draw people to the club and support her sister in return. And Bocchi's like, I want to quit high school.
That's my dream.
She does say, like, you are guitar hero, though, aren't you? That's where she figures out her line persona. The next episode is the end of summer break. Bocchi keeps like, we're going to hang out. I'm going to invite them. I just got to send the invite. And then we just see her watching science videos about gravity wells. Well, that's relatable. We've all fallen into gravity well YouTube videos.
Yes. I seek them out.
So interesting. Anyway, they eventually find her making bug graves outside the club, and they're like, you guys hung out with her, right? No, you hung out with her, right? And nobody hung out with her. They all just assumed someone else would.
I do love at least by this point, if not a couple episodes earlier, her episodes not only happen so often, but also in such debilitating ways that the rest of the group just go, oh yeah, that's Bocchi.
Just carry her along.
It just doesn't faze them anymore, because they were like concerned she's in a boxer. She comes into work, and the first thing she does is get into a garbage can, and nobody's fazed by it anymore.
Yep.
They take her to a beach, which she's so freaked out by that she's stunned and unconscious the whole way there. But I love when they get there and she's kind of waking up and she's like, we're at the beach. It's so beautiful. And these like guys in Speedos and all tanned come up and like, come to our shack and buy stuff from us. And she just bursts. She just like a balloon pops right there. They're like, they killed Bocchi. It's almost a South Park joke without the gore.
Yeah.
We just get a fun day of them hanging out, trying food, going up a shrine that no one wants to walk the stairs up to except for Kita, and then they go to the escalator. I do like Rio at the escalator, like, I have no money, but I will trade you this base if you will let me take your escalator.
I've got 2 bases.
And then Jason, you like the at the top when they get to the top, right? What Kita does?
Yeah, it's like, because so they get to the top of this tower on top of this mountain with a gorgeous view of the surrounding area. And so Kita like rushes onto the deck and she's just like, this is gorgeous. And then she hears this like, and she turns around and like all 3 of them are still in the elevator, like air conditioning. And she's like, she says something like, all you shut-ins are terrible. I hate you all.
Yep.
I had that argument with my wife today. Today was yard work day. It's it got really hot where we live, but yard work got to be done. And eventually I was like, I'm out. It's hot. I'm done. She's like, you always want to be inside. I'm like, I come from a land that's inside. And I sang that song for her, and she didn't think that was very funny.
I'm
But
sure.
it was funny. She got to be outside. I got to be inside. Anyway, my favorite joke is in this episode where they're sitting there eating ice cream, and these birds attack. And they steal Bocchi's ice cream, and then they just randomly attack Bocchi. And she's laying there on the ground in a crater, but it's Yamcha. It is Yamcha from his Big Death in Dragon Ball Z. They just colored him in Bocchi colors. They completely stole the image, and I laughed out loud so loud the rest of my house like ran in like, what happened? I'm like, Yamcha.
I did not even catch it, but after looking it up, it is spot on. Even the hair is the same.
So great.
It is a beautiful little detail that's subtle and not super obvious, but because I watched a lot of Team 4-Star not too long ago, and they reused that image a lot. Yeah, I recognized it instantly, and it was a burst out loud laughing moment where most of this is like, oh, that's funny, I'm chuckling. I was a big laugh.
That's awesome.
Then they go to a shrine to make wishes, and they're all wishing for the band's safety. And Nijiga's like, Bocchi, I saw you wishing really hard. I know you wish for the band's safety. And she's like, I was wishing school didn't have to start. What's she talking about?
Yeah.
Or I'd become rich and famous right away. Again, Bocchi's a little self-driven. That's all.
Just a little.
School starts. So the Unity Festival is coming up, and Bocchi has this dream of her band performing at the Unity Festival, and then wakes up with a filled out form in her hand right before putting in the entry. Is like, no, what is happening? Ends up passing out outside the door, taken to the nurse's office, and Kita comes and checks on her, and she's like, no, I can't let Kita see the form. But then she goes to the manager and the band, the rest other bandmates, and are like, "Hey, this is happening. I was thinking of entering our band." And they're like, "Yeah, we should do it. We're all for it." But we realize that would be hard for you, right? That is a huge amount of people that you haven't performed before, and people that know you,
them all,
and you know them. Yeah. Rio especially points out like that'll be difficult for you. So they let Bocchi make the decision, and so the next day, Bocchi eventually decides, "No, we're not going to do it." And then Kita runs up and is like, I entered the 4. I found it and I entered it for you. Don't worry about it.
See, this is what I mean. Like, if you want to succeed at something that an extrovert would normally succeed at, and you're not an extrovert, you kind of need an extrovert. Because sometimes there's moves you're not going to make.
And actually, so this is one of the things I was expecting, and it was nicely expectations were subverted, is she later on admits that I turned that thing in for you against your will. I knew you wouldn't want to do it.
Knowing you wouldn't.
Yeah. And Bocchi thanks her profusely because she knows there's no way I could have done it even though I wanted to. And the fact that you did it for me was a huge weight off my shoulders. And I liked that particular portrayal of that relationship. It wasn't a wedge that was shoved in there.
Yeah.
It was a heartwarming moment where they helped each other because obviously Kita had benefited from her relationship with Bocchi, and now Bocchi's reciprocating. So, yeah, that was a nice moment.
Want to get us introverts to get outside our box, lock us into unbreakable commitments.
Yeah, that's about the only way.
That is definitely worked on me many a time. And much like Bocchi, I'm like, thank you for locking me into this, even though I know an hour ago I was screaming that how dare you.
Yep.
The other part of this episode is they go to see Hiroi's band and watch her perform. They do psychedelic rock. This
it
time
was not psychedelic rock.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. Other than using psychedelic colors in the animation, but not in the. I wasn't hearing like, yeah. That I recognized.
Yeah, because they even mentioned, oh, it comes from the 60s. And so I was expecting the kind of strumming I don't like. God, I do not like psychedelic rock. But yeah, when they even started singing to it, I'm like, oh, this is maybe inspired, but I wouldn't call it in that category.
Um, so we get Hiroi doing a stage dive and doing the surfing the crowd. We also, this is where she admits about like why she started drinking and uses it as encouragement for Bocchi. Like, you've already come farther than I ever could sober. So imagine what you can do drinking. Just not the real message.
Yes.
Not good encouragement.
Also, she punches a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
And the manager is like, you're paying for that. She's like, Bocchi inspired me to do it. She's got to pay too. Bocchi does have horrible friends. And then it's the day of the festival, and Bocchi is missing. I thought this was going to be like, so that's the end of the episode. Like, it's festival time, and Bocchi's missing. End of episode. And there's 2 episodes left. And I was like, oh, there's going to be like this big internal conflict that she's having. But really, no, her class was doing a maid cafe, and she was just like, she just bounced.
Yeah.
She's not like
I'm out.
missing from the concert or having to overcome some personal fear about the performance. It had everything to do with a maid outfit, and she's hiding in a garden dirty closet area.
It was they had a bunch of trash in there.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
And Kita, the Bocchi expert, is able to help the other band members track her down.
In
And
a
then
place
they
that
just-
there would be slugs.
Yeah.
Dark and
Exactly.
damp.
Dark and
Yep.
damp.
Like she basically described mold.
Also,
Yeah.
okay, dark is good, but I don't like damp places. I don't know what damp comes into this. Anyway, they force her to participate in the activities for the festival. I do love that at the haunted house, she's not scared of the ghost girl, but then she hears people screaming next to her, and because there's people, that scares Bocchi.
Yeah.
That was a good joke. And then they make her go back to the maid cafe. And then they become customers, and Bocchi is standing outside. Look at her; she's making eye contact with the customers as they come in. She's standing on her feet, and like, no, she passed out like an hour ago. And then these, per the anime description, post-apocalyptic punks
Yep.
come walking in and start like harassing her, but because she's so passed out, she's not registering it, and they end up getting to a point where they're begging for forgiveness from her because she's so nonchalant about their aggression.
Yep.
I
And
was
they're
very
in,
confused
they're in the
about this.
rest of the anime. They're in the background for the
Yeah,
rest
they
of the
are.
anime.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so then they get Bocchi awake, and they get her to wait on their table, and there's like 5 different kinds of magic omni rice with all these crazy names, but it's really
Yeah.
just omni rice because they spent
like
all their money on costumes. The maid costumes, they don't have any money for food.
Which I also want to point out that Bocchi is wearing the maid costume technically, but she is also wearing her tracksuit underneath
it.
Yes, she's got like the pink tracksuit leggings underneath the maid skirt. It's very silly.
Everyone in the band ends up helping, and I felt like this was just for the fans to show their characters in maid costumes.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I agree.
Even though I did enjoy Rio in the butler costume. I did skip over the mop top joke where Rio's like, our band image will be mop tops like the Beatles. It makes everyone wear a wig. I like that one too. Okay, so after that though, they go and they check out the gymnasium they'll be performing in the next day. And then so really this ended up just being like a filler episode, but until the actual concert the next day, especially ending on a cliffhanger that felt a little silly.
Yeah.
I get it's a comedy, so I guess I don't really get to complain about that, but whatever.
You feel misled.
Then the concert and the opening is, we think, played as the first song instead of the opening of the anime. They play the song, but when they start the second song, I had to go back and watch this to keep track of what happened, and I actually had to have My wife explained it to me because I didn't understand. All right. So her E string on her guitar breaks. So while trying to adjust the B string so that she can continue to play E notes on the B string, which apparently you could do on a guitar, the peg for the B string breaks, so she can't adjust it, and it's now out of tune of what the notes she wants to play. So Bocchi, with her, because they put a solo in here to feature her in this second song, it's coming up, and Kita buys her some time with some
Ad-lib.
ad-libbing, thank you. And so Bocchi, knowing that she's got to do something and being inspired by Kita, grabs one of Heroi's glass. She even pointed out, I brought glass drinks this time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because I'm classy now.
It's like a beer can, but glass.
Uh-huh.
And she bottlenecks the guitar, which is where you usually use a clamp to change the something. This was explained to me, and I've forgotten most of it. I'll never become a musician.
Real simple. When you don't have any fingers on the strings, you play them, they're very straight notes. If you clamp them, now every time you strum, they're going to be that note that you've now clamped them to. So it then gives you freedom to use your fingers on other chords.
So then my daughter and my wife then proceeded to have a 15-minute argument about whether there would be enough pressure from a glass can that you're just pressing up against compared to a clamp, whether this would be effective or not. But either way, it worked in the anime. She's able to, it doesn't matter if it's in tune, if you're pressing a glass thing to the frets, and she jams away and finishes the song. And the crowd is digging it. It's very rock and roll. Her fans are there. Her family's there. I love the dad crying as he's videotaping. That I also was very much like, yeah, I get that. So the crowd's cheering for her, and they're like, okay, well, I guess she's got to say something. So they bring the microphone over to Bocchi, and she's like, okay, say something funny. Say something funny. I need a script. And introverts can't talk without a script. And she looks down and she sees the glass can she just used, and she remembers Heroi crowd surfing, and she's like, rock and roll, and she jumps face first. Don't face first, crowd surf. But she jumps face first, and nobody catches her, and she face plants and gets knocked unconscious on the ground. Even though
I wanted to ask you about this because it made zero sense to me that this is the decision she would make. Do you, not identify, but do you understand this moment?
For me personally, no, because I actually think public speaking is way easier. It's not personal connection speaking. I have no problem being on stage or talking into a microphone to a anonymous audience who might listen to a podcast later. It doesn't have the same effect on me as like if I have to ask a waiter to bring me something. That's terrifying.
So one-on-one is rough.
Right. So I probably could have said something into a microphone, even though obviously I'm nowhere near Bocchi's thing. But choosing a nonverbal rock and roll thing to do does, I feel, make sense for the character.
Yeah, I can see that.
And it's funny as heck.
Yeah.
Also, so they don't get to play their third song, but this does cement her in school as that hardcore rock and roll chick who stage dives. Like, this is like her rock and roll moment, and everyone loves it, even though it's also they're laughing at her. She's mortified, but she wakes up. They talk about whether they're gonna go out and party afterwards, but basically she apologizes to her dad for breaking his guitar because this is the one she had borrowed, and he's like, don't worry about it, but this is probably a good time for you to go buy your own guitar. And she's like, well, I don't have any money. And he's like, well, actually, you have a ton of money because you put your YouTube account on our family YouTube account, and I secretly monetized it for you, and here's all your ad revenue. And so she has all this money, and she's like, it's 30,000 yen.
Yeah.
And she can buy a guitar for 10.
No, it was 300,000.
300. Okay, so she can buy a guitar for 100 and then use the other $200 to not work for 2 years to pay for quotas. So she goes to work and supercharges like a Saiyan, and it's like, I'm gonna quit. But she can't bring herself to quit because that might disappoint people.
Actually, it's even worse than that. She is so excited to quit. She's hyped herself up so much. As soon as she gets in front of the manager, she's, I just want to let you know how hard I want to work and how grateful I am for this job.
All right. And then the band takes her to a music store to buy instruments. And she comes in headbanging, so they think she has headphones on. But they're like, headbanger, aisle 1. But her whole thing is like she just doesn't want a customer. She was going to buy online. She doesn't want someone to talk to her. And when she goes up she finds the guitar she likes. The salesperson does come up and is like, oh, this is a great one. This is a customized Yamaha. And if it's your first guitar, we can get you a shield and an amp. And Bocchi's like, I'll take all of it. And the band's like, you have all that. And the lady's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you already played guitar. That is real. I have so many times bought things I didn't need or want because that was the quickest end of the conversation, especially like those, hey, do you want to buy insurance for this? Yes, I didn't. Usually it's because I didn't hear the question and I don't want to ask what the question was. So I just like, yes. And they're like, okay, that'll be like $5 extra. God dang it. Your penalty. So very much felt seen in this episode. Not that I hide from customer service, but also, yeah, I have spent extra money for this very reason. So she gets her new guitar. And, oh, no, but she pays for it and runs out the store, and the band has to carry it to her because she could not be another second in the store. And she gets that customized Yamaha, and we see her take it home and then apologize to her old guitar that, you know, she still loves it as well. Any other thoughts?
No, I liked how as the episodes go by, she's progressively, because like at the beginning of the anime, she like the idea of going into a store was like going to her death. Like it was just terrifying for her. And the fact that she's been able to come this far to go and purchase her own guitar was pretty good to see.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I also liked how when it kind of leaves her room, it does a quick shot of the guitar sitting in the room, and that was a huge moment. Like this is an entirely new part of her life where she's got a different guitar. And I think that actually does matter. Like the fact that the guitar changed is probably huge for a musician, like to switch out what your main musical instrument is. I mean, I imagine a lot of them probably wind up with a ton of them over time, like Rio, but you could probably pick, especially your first handful, and know what part of your life you got them in. So it's like symbolic of a new part of her life.
I guess the only thing I'll add is that I really like in the 11th episode, the maid episode, where she's hiding in the slug area, where she checks online and realizes she hasn't been posting videos, and like her fans are literally like, "Where'd she go? I guess I'm unsubscribing." Because in the beginning, that's her pillar. That's okay. Well, I have this. And that she has grown so much that she didn't even realize that she wasn't relying on it anymore. And she's like, well, no, I need to go post for it. And that makes sense. But it just shows that she is moving past where she was. A nice little meter of growth. Okay, that was Bocchi the Rock. It is time for our final reviews. Jason, why don't you go first?
I had a nice time with it. There were moments that got me to chuckle. It was very poppy and bubblegummy, but it was a slice of life enough to help me connect with the characters and appreciate the growth that they were going through. I liked some of the life lessons that they presented. It didn't feel too silly because a lot of times these kind of anime can get silly, and they didn't go down that silly path too much. So, like I said, I probably wouldn't have picked this up if it wasn't suggested by our listeners. I'm glad that they suggested it. Like I said, I had a nice time. It's yeah, it's a 3 for me, right middle of the road.
Jeremy, how about you?
Yeah, it's basically the same for me. It is also a 3. The characters were fun. They were cute. The personalities were cute. I mean, the story was fine, but this just isn't really what I come to anime for. So,
Right?
yeah, it was just a matter of finding the parts of it that I like and enduring the rest. So it's just a 3.
Okay. I hadn't even really thought about a number. I guess a 3. It's somewhere between a 3 and a 4, but I'm gonna go with a 3. But not just cute characters. I really like the characters. I think the characters are the strongest part of this anime, with its exploration of the social anxiety, and then using the characters to show like polar opposites and different facets of introverted and extroverted. Not pushing past your social issues. The characters are great, and that they all kind of complete the theme it's working towards, and stand out and are funny. So it really does deserve a lot of praise for that. There's obviously a lot that I related to it, but like I said, I don't crawl into a pipe. Come on. And for the most part, I can talk to people, and I don't.
For the most part.
When someone talks to me, I also don't mumble and then imagine something for. No, that does happen. That's different. Though. That's not
Let's be honest.
another thing. Yeah, but it was fun. It was funny. I wish it had done a little more with the music, because actually the concerts and stuff were kind of the highlight for me. And like I talked about, Beck Mongolian Chopscott being one of my favorite anime. I kind of dig just that exploration of the indie rock scene. So this is very much like the very earliest phases of it. But like when they went to Heroi's concert and stuff, and just seeing that culture, I think is interesting and worth exploring. And I kind of wish this had gone a little farther in it, but that's not what it was here for. It was here for the social anxiety and then expressing it through the indie rock scene. And it did good. But a 3's all I'm gonna go, because again, it's just not, again, it's not what I come to anime for. It's not super imaginative. Yeah. We're watching Blue Lock next. It's about soccer. Mean soccer.
Yeah.
This is incredible because of who picked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it
I would
wasn't me.
normally refuse a sports anime.
Yeah, I was just floored.
Yep. We'll see. I'm hoping maybe somebody will die. It could get interesting.
And Jason, you've coached little kid soccer, right?
Yes.
So you'll be able to tell us everything about the rules of soccer, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yes.
There's one rule. Have fun.
What does offsides mean?
Do you want to know that now or next when we get there?
No, that'll probably be a mini-sode, to be honest. No.
Ask Jason questions about soccer. Welcome to our mini-sode.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually,
All
that
right.
was one of the most infuriating rules to get over. Anyways.
They did offsides in your kids' soccer? I didn't do that for my kids. He was, what, 7, 8? Yeah, they didn't know offsides.
Yeah, okay, so there is an age where they start doing it. Young kids, they don't, because there's no goalie. They start doing offsides as soon as there's a goalie.
I don't know. We had goalies, huh?
Yeah, well, then so every league's different, I guess.
All right. So if you have thoughts on Bocchi the Rock or the offside rule of soccer in little leagues, please reach out to us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, or you can leave us a comment on our website, theanimebakaclub.com, hitting the contact us page, or leave a comment wherever you found this, and it will usually get to us, and we'll respond. We do really appreciate the comments that we get. You guys' insights into the episodes really adds a little extra flavor to what we do here, and it's kind of the whole purpose of the whole shebang. So thank you.
Kit and caboodle.
With that, I think it's time for us to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Sayonara.